Hi, this is Theo from pocketblocks.com. Someone asked me to show one or two tutorials from this book that I reviewed a few days ago. This book has a lot of exercises and tutorials on blending colors, so I picked the one that is easiest for me to show in this video. And I'm going to show you how to blend colors like how I achieved for these two in this video today. Let's look at the tools I'm going to use today first. This is a sable brush. It's actually a pocket brush made by Rosemary. And this is a synthetic squirrel brush. This is the Ultimo series made by Skoda. I'm using these two brushes today because they have very good water holding capacity. And on my left here is a box of Core watercolors that is spelled as QOR. I have my plastic palette at the top, and this paper here is 400 GSM paper. Before I start, I have to wet this box here so that the water can help the pigment move later on. I'm just going to cover everything and make sure I do not go out of the line. I'll try to apply the water as evenly as possible. Make sure that there's enough water, but also make sure that it is actually not too wet. Okay, so now I'm just going to go in with, with the Hansa yellow that I mixed earlier. So I'm just going to drop it here. So once I drop it in, the pigment will start to spread. So depending on how much water you add earlier, the pigment may or may not flow fast. So I'm just going to drop another drop here somewhere in the middle. Let me wash the brush, and then I'm going to drop in the cobalt blue. Let me zoom in closer for you to see. So some of the yellow has already spread to the other part. And I'm going to add a bit of cobalt blue to the other corner. Cobalt blue is quite heavy, so it doesn't move a lot. So I have to push it around. Let me put another drop here so you can see that the pigment doesn't spread a lot. For some pigment, the heavier pigments, they will not spread a lot, so I guess this is the case for cobalt. But for the yellow that you see earlier, it spreads quite fast. So I'm just going to push the cobalt over from one side to the other. Also notice that the paint does not go out of the water. So it flows in the area that I wetted just now. I'm just going to push the pigment very carefully from one side to the other side. I think I use a bit too much water, so I'm just going to dry my brush and pick up the excess water that is on the surface of the paper. So just dry it like that, and then go in and take the excess water. Just to make sure that it's not too wet. So as the surface is still wet, the pigment will continue to settle down. So I'm just going to leave this as it is and go on with the next box. For this second box, I am going to wet the box as well. Same thing. Make sure that it's wet enough so that the pigment can move around in the box. This squirrel brush is really handy when it comes to painting a big area. Okay, let me distribute the water evenly around the box as best as I can. Let me mix a bit of Hansa yellow first. Let me drop it in. So once I drop it in, you can see that the pigment starts to spread immediately. The next color I want to use is permanent alizari crimson. So I've already pre-mixed a bit. Let's add that and see what happens. So I'm going to add it at the other side. Let me use more pigment. I'm just going to dab the pigment into the area here. Okay, as the wash is still quite wet, I can move the pigment around. So just let the pigment flow and see how it moves down the paper. You can see the pigment starts to move. You can also control where it's going to go. Notice that the first wash there is still wet, but it's not moving because the water there is not too much. So if you use a lot of water, the pigment is going to move easier. And if you don't have any water, then it's not going to move as much. Okay, so I'm just going to pick up the excess water again at the corner, which is on the left side. Okay, then I'm going to wait for this to dry. While waiting for the wash to dry, let me color this sketch using the same technique. So I'm just going to wet the areas where I want to color with water. This is a 300 GSM paper, so it might warp a bit. I use Sharpie markers for this particular sketch. It's a permanent marker, so it's waterproof. I have to make sure that I don't go over the lines that I do not want to. The areas that I left it dry is the windows and this strip here, and also the lights, stuff like that. So I'm going to use permanent alizari crimson and dab it in and see what happens. So you see the pigment starts to spread very quickly. Let me put some at the roof there as well. I'm going to use a lot of pigment, so I'm just going into the paint to pick up more pigment. You can see the ink, the pigment flowing down there. And then I'm going to pick up cobalt blue and dab it in as well. Notice that the pigment doesn't go over the line there, because that line is dry. Cobalt blue doesn't move as much, so I have to push it around. Maybe I dab a bit on the top as well. I'll create some shadow for this car as well, using the mixture that I painted, which is permanent alizarin crimson and cobalt blue. Maybe I'll let it fade out of the car body. This is now dry. Let's take a look. Cobalt blue is a granulating pigment, so you can see this lovely granulation pattern on the cold press paper. And this is Hansa yellow medium. I did not push the pin all the way to the left side, so there's this boundary here that you can see. But this is the very subtle blend of yellow and blue. It gives you a green, but you still can see the individual colors showing through. So I think that's very nice. The other one is Hansa yellow medium and permanent alizarin crimson. Both are non-granulating pigments, so it's how should I say, it's quite flat in the sense that there's no granulation, but the blend is very nice as well. It's a very soft transition from alizarin crimson to Hansa yellow to give this shade of orange pinkish glow. Let's see the sketch of the car earlier. Just now I wetted the whole area of the car body with water and then proceeded to put in the pigment. So you can see this very nice blending of colors as well. Each color still shows through. The cobalt blue and the permanent alizarin crimson still shows through. Very beautiful blending of colors. This is a fun exercise that you can try on your own. There are a few things to take note. One is the paper weight. I recommend at least using 300 GSM, because if you use any thinner paper, the paper is going to buckle and the paint is going to settle at the lowest point of the paper, and the color transition may look a bit weird. So use thicker paper, or at least clip down or tape down the paper. The other thing is to prepare your color mixture before you wet the area, so that after you wet the area, you have colors to put in immediately. I think that's about all. It's a fun exercise. Try it on your own. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, do so for more sketching tips and techniques, art book, sketchbook features, art product reviews, and more. Thanks for watching this video and have a nice day. See you next time. Bye.